We hear knowledge is power, but I personally believe that knowledge is power until it becomes the very thing that is holding us back. That is what we're going to be talking about today in this final episode of season 2 of The Solo Grind. Welcome to The Solo Grind, where we shine a light on the raw and real journey of being a solo entrepreneur. I am Teresa, your guide on this adventure of going it alone without a safety net and without the rule book. The grind is real, my friend, and so are the wins, the freedom, and the joy of building success on your own terms. I'm here to debunk the myths, share some laughs, and share what it takes to thrive as a go-getter, busy, doing it all entrepreneur. Hello, my friends. Welcome to the Solo Grind. I am your host, Teresa Shaloop, the original caffeine creative. And to those of you joining me for the very first time, welcome. I'm so glad that you are here. For those of you joining me, coming back to revisit our conversations and joining me week to week, I say welcome back. I am so glad you're here. I love connecting with each and every one of you every week, almost every week. I do take breaks between seasons, which is where we're at today. This is the final episode of season 2, and it has been quite the season. I have had some incredible conversations with a lot of people, some of them on camera, microphone, some of them off the inspired episodes, but it's really been a great season talking about mindset, being a solo entrepreneur, and all the nuances of that. Well, actually, probably not all the nuances. I would say we've touched the tip of the iceberg, my friends, but that is why we're coming back, or I am coming back for season 3. And I hope you will join me here in a couple of weeks. Now, if you are joining me for the very first time, and for those of you who are just here once in a while and maybe forgot, by day, I am a web designer. I love doing this podcast. It has absolutely become one of the joys of my life. But for my paycheck, I am a web designer. I help people, solo entrepreneurs primarily, try to thrive online to stand out and be noticed for the amazing people that they are. I don't believe in cookie cutter solutions. I believe in real solutions that are in alignment with you, who you are, your values, and the dream customers that you are searching for. So if that is something that you're looking for, I encourage you to come to my website at caffeinecreative.io and book a consult call. 20-minute conversation can help us decide if we're a good fit or if I want to help you find somebody else to give you what it is you need, because I'm not looking to book every person. I'm simply looking to help the world be a better place where I can. Alrighty, so that is enough about me, because actually today I'm going to be sharing a little bit of a personal story. And I promise that this personal story has a point. It has a purpose. All right. Now, this story goes back to last fall, and actually, it goes back a little further. So, if you've been with me, you probably know that about 5, almost 6 years ago now, I went through a journey of cancer. Okay. It's behind me now. I don't like to harp on it, but it did shape my life. And it shaped my life in a lot of different ways. Now, one thing a lot of people don't realize when you go through cancer treatment, chemotherapy, radiation, things like that, you don't bounce right back after treatment is done. Okay. That is some hardcore stuff, and your body goes through a lot. And that doesn't count what the disease has done to your body. Okay. So while treatment may be done and you start getting energy back and you start feeling a little bit better, there's a whole slew of things that you have to relearn or overcome, or whatever the case is. Everybody's journey is different. For me, my journey looked like a lot of fatigue, which was in part from the treatment, but also in part from being postmenopausal, and then also having a thyroid issue on top of it all. So, extreme amounts of fatigue. And before all of this happened, I was a really energetic person. Like, I am not one to just sit around and watch TV. On the weekends, I will sit there and have coffee as I chit chat with my mom on Saturday mornings. And then I am up and about and I'm doing something. I'm cleaning my house. I'm cooking and meal prepping. I'm um, working on some project, or I'm digging in the yard, or I'm off with friends, like whatever. Like I am just not a person to sit around until that journey of cancer came around. And I spent a lot of time sitting around. And honestly, it was out of necessity. My body needed to rest. And so, what had been something I took for granted, being able to be very energetic and active, became a luxury. And I spent close to, 4 years sitting on my butt a lot, and I was not active. And after that time, having gone through sitting on my butt, being fatigued, not being able to be active, plus steroids and all the other things, you can imagine that my body changed in some ways that I was not very happy about. There was extra pounds, there was muscle loss, there was a lot of things going on. And as much as I tried to keep up with a fitness journey during all of that, there was a lot of days, sometimes weeks, when I was a success if I could get up, shower, and take care of my basic needs for the day. And that's just the reality. Okay. So with that being said, this past fall, I finally got my energy back. And that is why I'm sharing all of this, because I am excited. I've got my energy back. I've got goals, fitness goals that I want to achieve. I want to undo some of the things that had gone on, the extra weight and the muscle loss and yada yada. And so I have my energy back and I'm excited and I'm ready. But like anyone else, when you start a journey like that, like a fitness journey, I'm going to call it, because it's not just about the weight loss, but weight loss is one of the biggest measurements that we look at. And when you just look at the weight, that number on the scale, it really derails your success and it messes you up. Okay. So I decided that I wanted to be better informed about my actual fitness. And I was going to let technology help me. So one of the things that I bought was a smart scale, because a smart scale doesn't just look at the weight. It gives me full on stats about my body. It gives me my water weight. It gives me muscle mass, bone mass, um, all of these things. It gives me a whole bunch of stuff. And we don't need to go into detail, but it was a lot of stats that showed me exactly where I was at and how I was improving. So early on, after I bought this scale, it was really, really empowering, because as I said, just looking at the numbers of weight, you it's very deceiving. It's very what's the word I'm looking for? Disheartening when you don't see those numbers moving like you think they should. Okay. And honestly, they fluctuate so much that they really hide the progress that we're making. So having the scale that was showing all the things that I had going on for me, that I actually had better muscle mass than I thought, that I hadn't completely lost that. It really was empowering, and it helped me be motivated. It helped build momentum, and it helped me feel very strong and good about where I was at after this awful journey that really kind of derailed my health. So here's that moment when knowledge is power. Okay. It was empowering. It was educational. It helped me see things more clearly. It helped me feel better about myself. It was really amazing empowerment until it wasn't. And this is when the disillusionment started to set in. So as I'm doing this, and me, I am a nerd. I love numbers. I think numbers are fun. As a small child, my dad would give me complicated math problems that I would figure out in my head. And I just, I'm just that person. So when something presents me with numbers and data and statistics, I kind of get a little nerdy right off the bat if I find it to be something very interesting. Not all numbers are interesting to me, but this is one that I started looking at every single morning. Every single morning, I would get up, brush my teeth, hop on the scale, grab my cup of coffee, and I would look at the numbers on my phone to see what had changed from on my smart scale numbers from yesterday to today. As you can imagine, after a while, when you are relying on something else to validate your progress, it's not enough after a while, basically. The stats began to slow to a crawl, which is very normal anytime that you are on a fitness journey. Okay. You are going to when you look at the numbers alone, it's going to feel like you're not making any kind of progress at all. And putting all of my thoughts, time, and energy into watching these numbers move on my phone, the app on my phone, honestly became very, very disheartening. And I started questioning, am I doing anything good? Am I even making progress? Does any of this matter? Maybe I should change my protein. Maybe I should change my workout. Maybe I should change. You can imagine my mind is spinning out of control because these little numbers are not moving as quickly as I think they should. So, what do you do when you no longer have validation for your progress? Okay. Here's what I discovered from this. First of all, I realized that while I was so fixated on the numbers on my phone, I was forgetting to look at the whole picture. Okay. These are just one piece of the puzzle, one little thing that is showing my progress. But there's a lot of other things happening around me that shows that I am making good progress. Things like being able to have longer workouts. Okay. I was able to go from 30 minutes to 60, 90-minute workouts. Okay. Being able to move more quickly on my treadmill. Okay. That was something like I remember starting off at a very slow pace, and now I'm able to do a pretty brisk walk, which I'm not a runner, so I'm never going to do that. But I was able to move more quickly for longer periods. I was starting to see a shift in how my body looked. My face wasn't so round. I didn't have that big old poofy tomato face anymore. I had a neck again, which was exciting. My arms were starting to get more tone and I could see a difference in them. My legs, same difference. Like they weren't as fluffy as they had been before. And so all of these things were happening and they were right in front of my face. Like they were right there in the mirror each and every day. But I wasn't seeing them because I was fixated on these numbers validating my progress. And it dawned on me that this is exactly what we do in business a lot of times. We become fixated on the numbers, the stats. And if you tuned in season 1, I had an episode where I talked about really the only stat that I pay attention to is my bank account when it comes to success. Like I never look at likes and email open rates and all of that stuff. And I can put a link to the show notes, but that's really where we get stuck sometimes. We focus on the numbers. Well, I don't have as many people following me as this coach has, or I don't have as many or a big enough open rate, or nobody watched my episode last week. Like I had much less downloads on my episode of my podcast last week. Why is that going on? We fixate on the numbers and we rely so often on those numbers being the only validation of our success instead of stepping back and looking at the whole big picture around us. And that is saying that, hey, maybe you didn't have as many people engaging with you on Instagram, but the engagement you had was really good. Or maybe somebody booked a call with you because of something you shared that really resonated with them, that helped them decide, finally, that's the person that I want to work with. Maybe you had an influx in business, okay? Or maybe you had more consults, but less people who followed through. That in itself is a success because not everybody is going to be the perfect fit. And the better you get at selecting the right clients for you, the better you're going to be doing. All right. Well, just a second. I have a kitten at my feet who thinks she wants to play in the trash can. My apologies. Okay, crisis averted. Let me put that back. So that is what today is what I wanted to talk about, is looking at the whole picture. Don't just look at one thing and hope that it validates your success. look at all of the little things around you. Were you quicker at being able to support your clients? Sometimes, like I remember early on the time it would take me to design a website and how what would take me days to do in some cases, a project, a page, or whatever, I can now do in a couple hours because I just understand the process a little bit better and I'm much better at knowing what works and what doesn't. I mean, these are all things that we need to be looking at and we need to be paying attention to, not just the numbers on the screen in the statistics that we look at. So, here's the thing that I want to share. Okay. The one thing that I want you to take away from this episode above anything else, waiting for external validation is never going to show you the real success that you are. Okay. You've got to look at the whole big picture, my friends. So, with that being said, what if we shifted our thoughts? What if we shifted our mindset from the idea that knowledge is power to the idea that knowledge is just a tool and it doesn't always show the whole truth? Okay. We've got to look at the big picture. You don't need a smart scale for your business. You need to have clarity, trust in yourself and your own personal intuition, and a clear perspective of what is really going on around you and not just looking at one little tiny piece. All right. So, with that, I have a little exercise for us to wrap up season 2 and for us to take a look at our own personal success because we are now coming up, we're halfway through quarter 2 of the year, which is crazy to think about. Athena might be making an appearance for the video here in just a second. That would be the cat that is being naughty. So I have an exercise because as we come to summertime, we're starting to think, oh my gosh, have I done enough? Have I got enough followers? Have I accomplished these goals? Where our minds are spinning out of control. And we're more likely to look at the numbers to help us understand that. So before you fixate on the numbers, I have an exercise for you. I'm going to put these questions in the show notes and then in the extended notes, as always, that are on my website. You can find them there too. But I want you to answer these questions. And this is really a journaling moment. So definitely check out the show notes. All right. The first question here is, what tool or expert am I relying on to validate what I already know deep within? Okay. Is this somebody you've been following who says you're only a success if you're making 7 figures, or some crackpot idea like that? Or is it statistics that you are looking at? What is it that you are relying on to validate your success? Okay. Question number 2. What does my inner guidance, my intuition tell me that I have been ignoring? Now, this is a big one. I really do believe that each and every one of us has the knowledge we need to live the life of our dreams within us. We know what we want. We know what we need. We have a tendency as people to listen to everybody else and ignore our own personal intuition, our inner guidance, but we know what we need. So, what is that little nudge in the back of your brain? What is that little thing that's been saying, hey, I really think you need to do this, or I think this is where we want to go? But you keep saying, but no, the experts, this social media post I saw on TikTok, not to do that. Okay, so what is our intuition telling us that we're ignoring? All right, that is question 2. And then question number 3. Where am I holding myself back because I'm waiting for proof? Going back to the analogy or the story of my smart scale, I almost gave up my journey. Despite the fact that I looked better, despite the fact that I felt better, I was ready to give up and say, it doesn't matter what I'm doing. Okay. It absolutely matters what I'm doing. And I'm continuing to see progress since I decided to ditch the scale and ignore it. Okay. So I was going to hold myself back because this stupid little piece of plastic in my, scale in my bathroom did not validate what I wanted it to do. That's dumb. What are you doing that in some other sense of in your life? Okay. Where are you holding yourself back because you're waiting for your proof? All right. So that, my friends, is bringing us to the end of this episode. And thank you so much for being here. One thing that I really do want to remind you of is that your success is unfolding before you. It may not always look like it. It may not show in the numbers, but your energy, your progress, your impact is very real. And I want you to take a moment today to celebrate that, because you deserve to know that you are incredibly successful exactly where you're at. All right. Thank you guys so much for joining me for this episode here. I look forward to seeing you all in season 3. We've got a couple changes that are going to be happening. Some new theme music, I think, is in order, and a few other potential enhancements to the video experience of the podcast for my YouTubers out there. So until I see each and every one of you again, thank you again for tuning in. It has been such a pleasure being here with you each and every week, and I cannot wait to connect with each and every one of you again in season 3 of The Solo Grind. Thanks for tuning in to The Solo Grind. I hope this episode brought you some inspiration and encouragement. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe, rate, and review the podcast, and feel free to share. For more tips and insights, visit caffeinecreative.io to check out my blog or explore the Creative Vault, my free course library. You can also find me on Facebook and Instagram. I'd love to hear how this episode has helped you.